Hey everybody, this is Jeff from Build an Aquarium Workshop, and today we are back at our 75-gallon Lake Tanganyika cichlid show tank. And today we're going to highlight the one of my other favorite fish, Lepidiolamprologus attenuatus yellow. And there he is right front and center for us. Another torpedo-shaped fish or cichlid out of Lake Tanganyika. The Lepidiolamprologus genus is these super fast fish, and you'll see here in a moment I'll give them a few cichlid pellets, and you'll be able to see how they dart around. Okay, here we go. So we have our Lepidiolamprologus attenuatus yellow. They come in a yellow form or a brown form. The males get close to 6 inches, I guess up to 6 inches. Females a little smaller, maybe up to about 4 inches. I only have the one in the tank, so we bought it as a baby, so I'm not sure if it's a male or a female. I think other than size, I'm not sure that there's any other way to tell the sex of the fish. And this fish, I can tell you, this fish does like the open water, low to middle. You don't see them usually high up unless it's feeding in this tank. And the fish is not, as fish go, not too super aggressive. He kind of gets into it with that Kendall eye back there, and I'm sure because they're the same genus. Other than that, he also gets into it with the Tridocephalus a little bit, but the fighting's kind of to a minimum. And I can say this, the fish, let's see, as far as stats, breeding, they like to breed in, according to the books, what I've read also, is they like sandy substrate. They dig these craters and spawn, but also it says they spawn in like caves and crevices. I've seen YouTube videos where this fish has bred in like a ceramic cave. So that's, pretty typical for most cichlids, breeding, in rocks, that kind of thing. Fish is a carnivore. In the beginning, it was a little tentative on eating flake food, didn't really prefer it, still doesn't prefer it too much, or pellets, would rather have like a brine shrimp or a mysis shrimp, or the cichlid lovers frozen food, which is a few things in there. It's a carnivorous diet, and all these fish do very, very well on that, by the way. This attenuatus, though, yeah, prefers the frozen food. I'm sure it would love live food. I don't feed them live food in here, live fish, nothing like that. Yeah, and discoloration, you'll see it goes from like a pale, where you almost don't see anything, and then you'll see that, there you go, if it gets really excited, it's going to color up for us, and it's kind of doing that now. You'll see a couple dots. You can see the one dot right there, and then the black edging on the fins and the yellowish tinge to it makes it a very, very pretty fish, especially when it's colored up. When it's pale, it doesn't look like much, but a lot of fish, you could say that for when they don't have a lot of color. And there you go. So he or she is very wary of the Kendall eye, because that's the ruler of this tank, and he gets chased quite a bit. So you can see that when they're ready to feed, they're all just kind of look at me, and they don't. Their aggression kind of subsides for a brief period. But if we go away, then they start kind of either chasing each other or going at it. But like I said, it's not too bad. It's not like some of the other larger cichlids or cichlids from the other lakes that are just constantly chasing and fighting. As far as all the other thing about breeding too is, so crevices, caves, craters, but also one person said they bred in shells. So I've never seen that, but I guess it's possible. Although these fish are pretty big. I would think by the time they get mature, the shell would have to be pretty big too for the female to fit in. Okay, As far as water parameters, it's very typical Lake Tanganyika. There's nothing new there. 12 to 14 degrees of hardness. Keep it around, high 70s is perfect for the fish. And then also your pH is going to be around 9. I think Tanganyikans go up to about 9.4. I've said in the past. You don't want to keep low 9s. Somewhere in there is good. And definitely I just did a water change yesterday. I use the Tanganyikan cichlid salt and the Tanganyikan buffer by Seachem. So if you have, there you go, look how nice he looks. If you have Tanganyikans, then you definitely want to use those products for the water. Okay, and always sandy substrates, and also lots of rocks, of course. Even though he does like to hide in the rocks. And they sleep when you close the lights. These fish go to bed. They like to hide in the rocks as well. They don't stay out in the open. Sometimes the Trilocephalus, I might see them hanging out in the sand or something, but most of the time they hide behind the rocks and in the caves. So you definitely want to have a lot of rocks for them, for sure. As far as tank mates are concerned, you can see in here we have a Lepidiolamprologus trilocephalus. We have a Lepidiolamprologus cylindricus. There is also Untitled calvus that's hiding in a cave right now, and the Lepidiolamprologus kendalli. And I would say try to keep one Lepidiolamprologus per tank, unless it's a really, really big tank, or if you have a pair, then that might be different. But in tanks like this is a 4-foot tank. It's a 75-gallon. It's difficult. This fish, as you can see, he's doing quite well right now. He's kind of hanging out, but when I'm not here, the kendalli keeps him over here in this corner most of the time. He gives them that space, except when they're feeding. When they're feeding, then the fish go all over wherever the food is. And that blows around too with that power head and that filter I have. But yeah, so this fish for tank mates, I would say nothing too super aggressive. But I would think most fish, it would do well. And of course, any fish that's too small that it can fit in its mouth. It doesn't have a huge mouth like the kendalli. But yeah, it could eat a baby fish, that's for sure. If you had a fish that was really small, it could definitely eat it. I mean, his mouth can get over stuff surprisingly, even though it looks kind of small. And other than that, I would say if you want to keep them with most Lepidiolamprologus, and of course, even say your feather fins, things like that would be okay. You'd probably even keep it with a frontosa. Basically carnivorous fish that need a lot of meat. I wouldn't put it with anything that, like say Tropheus, nothing that's a big time vegetarian, needs a lot of vegetable matter, or cannot eat a lot of meat. Then that would be a conflict of interest there, because you're going to need to feed these fish a lot of meat. And like I said, I feed, the fish does eat flake food, a cichlid flake and a cichlid pellet. I feed that in the morning. And then brine shrimp or mysis shrimp, and then cichlid lover's delight, something like that, which is by San Francisco Bay Brine. You can see if there are any other meat formulas. That's a cichlid formula specifically, not specifically for Lake Tanganyikans, but it is for cichlids, and it's got a lot of good stuff in there for them, and they really love it. So I highly recommend that food. The only thing I don't feed is worms. I don't feed any bloodworms or tubifex worms, something like that. I've always stood away from that. Other people have had better experience, I guess, with that. I have not, so I stay away from that. But anyway, so, okay, folks, there we go. There's today's episode was the Lepidiolamprologus attenuatus yellow. And if you found the video useful, give us a like, please. And, of course, if you want to see more tropical fish videos, please subscribe to our Build an Aquarium Workshop channel. Thank you, and have a great day.